This is the BroStorm Sports Podcast. On this week's episode, we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about the Chiefs and the Bengals game. What'd you expect? Then we get into a little Eagles-Niners, and in the last segment, we reconcile all of our best bets throughout the playoffs. It's going to be a good episode. Stay with us throughout.
It's BroStorm Sports with your hosts, Sasha and Scott Bushka. He's a sports talk show host named Sasha, named after Sasha Radunovich. And Scott's a wisdom-seeking, educated, networking guy who works in the sports industry. Featuring Intern P, the basement beer pong world champion. So put on your bro coat. It's time for a Bro Storm.
Welcome into BroStorm Sports. It is Monday, January 30th. We're recording on Monday night as usual. Of course, there's no Monday Night Football tonight, but we do have a Super Bowl matchup confirmed. The Philadelphia Eagles will be taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 57. How we doing tonight, fellas?
I'm doing amazing, except for the fact that I'm somewhat sad that there's only one game left in the NFL season. But the Chiefs are in it, and I feel like a genius because everything I said on the podcast for all of you listeners out there came true on Sunday night. About Joe Burrow being soft and Mahomes about to show him who's boss, and we can get into the Cincinnati mayor. And the intern P is a dumbass, which we already knew, but I guess good to confirm again for the listeners and through actual football results. So, intern P, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I don't really know what to say to that. Yeah, they took an L. I don't know what to say. NFL rigged. I'll get some more on that later. I mean, the Chiefs did play well. I'll give you that. I don't like that you're right. I think that really hurts me the most. I told Sasha before the game, I was like, I kind of want to see Scott cry. But unfortunately, we didn't get that today. So,
yeah.
First of all, Scott doesn't cry. Second of all, Sasha, can we come back to intern P sounding like every other little crybaby on Twitter about the NFL being rigged?
Yeah, we'll get there. Intern P, I can confirm Intern P was incredibly butthurt about the way the Chiefs-Bengals game played out. And I think it had something to do with, and I quote before the game, I'm putting the balance on the Bengals.
dude, okay, it was like $20. That's all I had on my account, okay? It wasn't like
you said
it just happened to be.
You could have just said, I'm putting $20 on the Bengals. You said, I'm putting the balance on the Bengals.
Dude, don't give me, I mean, I expect that out of intern P, but and I know we'll get into it, but the amount of disrespect from the general public of just like everyone betting on and picking the Bengals is like, come on, people. The Chiefs have been to 5 straight AFC Championships games. Mahomes is the undisputed best quarterback in the league. They're playing at home, and people are just like, "Oh yeah, the Bengals are for sure gonna win."
I agree. And actually, it came out last week after our show, so we didn't get a chance to talk about it. I believe is Aftab Purval, it doesn't matter what his name is, as Travis Kelce should have said in his post-game interview.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
I mean, he gave every other The Rock quote that he could think of. So, but he basically asked if Joe Burrow. It was actually kind of funny. Like, is Joe Burrow going to take a paternity test to confirm that he's Patrick Mahomes' father? But the Twitter reaction from Bengals fans was pretty much like, dude, you're an idiot. Like, wait until after we win the game. So at least they had some sort of I don't know the word self-awareness there to know that was a dumb thing.
They had some feel. And I do respect that. Especially when you got Eli Apple saying have fun in Cancun before the game. I'm just like, you're not even good at football, dude. Like,
Eli
what
Apple
are you doing?
loves writing checks his ass can't cash.
I mean, if Joe Burrow says that, you're like, oh, okay. But Eli Apple, dude, and who's the dude that said Burrowhead? Like, what are we doing here?
It was Mike Hilton, I believe.
Yeah,
but
what are we doing here?
Onto the field a little bit. Like, the Chiefs were basically missing all of their good players in that game. Mahomes was playing on one leg. Tony went out during the game. McCole Hardman went out during the game. I don't know. Juju went out at some point during the game. They were playing with Marquez Valdez-Scantling and Marcus Kemp, and then L'Jarius Sneed out on the defensive side. I mean, it was a gritty performance.
Yeah, I will. I mean, we've already talked about this a little bit, and I mentioned it kind of in my 5-minute long rant about Joe Burrow last week, so it's not worth repeating. But just, I think like setting the table for on the field is important. Cincinnati definitely talks too much. I don't think that helped them in this scenario. Like, I think the Chiefs, who I said in our text message, are like they are prone to be somewhat apathetic and play down to their competition at times. I think specifically their defense. And I was actually listening to Ryan Clark on ESPN today, who played safety in the NFL. And he was like, I've said this before, stuff like that I don't think matters to an offensive player, but to the defense, I actually think it does. Like, when your job is to chase down and hit people, if you want to hit them worse, what he said is he actually thinks it does matter. So, like, I think Chris Jones was legitimately pissed off. He played like it. So I don't think that helped the Bengals, like the Burrowhead, the mayor, which wasn't the team's fault, but any of that stuff, I don't think it helped. And Mahomes is like, they have been to 5 straight AFC Championship games. Now, 3 of those years they've gone on to win the Super Bowl. Mahomes has won a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl MVP. He's won an MVP. I know Joe Burrow thinks he's great, but he's been to 1 Super Bowl, right? They've had one of those runs. So yeah. And then Sasha, your point on the fields, like, I think that this has probably been the most mature run of this 5-year Mahomes era. Like, I think you left out Willie Gay. So, like, their best cornerback, Sneed, their really important linebacker and Willie Gay, all of their receivers, which is like, it was almost weird that they all just got hurt, like, on simultaneous drives. And I do want to talk about whether or not we know the health status of any of them, because it feels like some of those guys should be able to come back for the Super Bowl. But I felt like the Chiefs outplayed them. They definitely outgained them. They owned the first half again, and it looked like it was going to slip away. Like, I could not believe that Andy Reid punted that ball on 4th and 7 from whatever it was, the 37-yard line. I forget. Like, when he punted that ball, I'm like, we're for sure losing. You give the ball back to Joe Burrow with 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. What did you guys think of that decision?
I think it was a little bit of a sign of the way the game was going. Like, normally you'd say Chiefs 4th and 7. I mean, you got a pretty good chance to make it, I think. And then on the other token is, like, if you give the Bengals the ball, you'd say they're definitely going to score. But the way this game was going, 4th and 7 didn't look anything like a sure thing.
Yeah.
And the Bengals scoring going the other way didn't look anything like a sure thing either. Butker had been, like, the thought process is maybe a field goal. But if you watch that, what ended up being the game-winning field goal, I don't think he would have been good from that distance. Like, and they said he was short from that distance in warmups. So it was a really tough decision. It's one of those 3-way decisions where there's 3 different things you could do, and none of them are really great options. But it was interesting to punt it away. In the moment, I can't say I was, like, cussing it completely in the moment. So I don't want to, like, and obviously it wouldn't be revisionist history because it worked out the way they wanted it to. But I don't want to say that I thought it was a horrible decision, because in the moment I wasn't saying that.
Yeah, I thought the Chiefs, there was twice when I thought the Chiefs had lost the game, when they punted it away. And then you get them to 3rd and 16 after the intentional grounding penalty, right, which intern P was an intentional grounding penalty without a doubt. Even though you're going to tell me that it wasn't. Samaje Perine was running like a slant route, and he threw it at the feet of 4 offensive linemen. So 3rd and 16, and somehow we let them convert it in a wide open pass to Hayden Hurst, which then I'm like, oh, the game's over now. But defense came through, man. Defense played absolutely huge. And I can't believe that they leave Chris Jones on an island on that 3rd and 8 play against a backup O tackle, and he just smoked him.
So we've kind of danced around it a little bit, but Intern P, tell us about that intentional grounding and why this game was rigged.
You know, I don't really know in a way. These refs, it's just so hard. Okay, these were good calls in a way. That there was holding on the one when Patrick Mahomes, but Scott was saying, I mean, it's basically holding every single play. The intentional grounding.
I don't think that was holding.
Okay, that's an opinion. I respect your opinion.
Like one dude cut a video on Twitter and said it was a hole, and you ate it up.
It just sucks that I know that the roughing the passer thing or the late hit out of bounds did happen, and it just sucked that it happened. And then when they had 3 fifth downs, like that was I understand they ruled it dead, but I've never seen anything like that in my life. I've never seen that, and I know he ruled it dead. I know it's loud in there, but how do you let that happen on the biggest stage, the biggest game of the year? I just don't understand.
So here's what I'll say, though, is like in real time, as that was happening, you were like, I've never seen them blow a play dead, play it, and then replay it, even though it actually happened earlier in the game on a false start. Like,
so twice. Exactly. Okay, so twice.
But
maybe
I'm just saying,
like,
that happens all the time. Plays get blown dead. Like, people continue to play, and then they say, no, that play didn't count because we blew it dead.
I agree with Sasha.
Okay, that's okay. And then the next play, we get the holding. I don't know.
Did you see the holding call?
Yeah, it was holding. It's more fun to complain about it. It's more fun to complain about it.
Like Andrew Wiley got a bullshit like unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Chiefs got a touchdown called back for a hold earlier in the game. The reality is like you had a couple like. The only one people complain about is that getting that extra 3rd down, which didn't end up mattering anyways.
There was also a play in the game at some point where they did one of these. After further discussion, we have changed the ruling on the field, which basically means New York called it and said it's wrong. That call was in favor of the Bengals, even though the Chiefs had to challenge 2 other times in the game to try to get something overturned.
Right.
So,
right.
I mean, I don't think the officiating was as much of a story as people want to make it out to be. The Chiefs won the game on a call at the end of the game, and so people want to make it into an officiating story. I hated to see it in that way too, but they had to make the call. Like you cannot swallow the whistle, so to speak, to use a basketball term, at that point in the game when it's an obvious late hit out of bounds.
Yeah, if there is. I agree with that 100%, Sasha. And I don't think there's actually anyone saying that wasn't a penalty on that last play because it was. I think if there is one point to be made about the officiating, it's that the NFL should stop using these all-star crews in the playoffs because they don't keep crews together, right? They rate guys and then they put together all-stars for the playoffs. And I do think the crews lack some continuity, which means you're more likely to get stuff like what happened, which is like calls being played slightly late, etc. That to me doesn't make any sense. It's like you should be rated as a team, and then you go work the playoffs as a team. So I did see something that I thought was interesting going around today, which is like somehow every time the Chiefs win in the playoffs, like everyone else wants to change a rule.
Yeah, well. That's a fair point. We changed the overtime rules for them, even though the exact same thing happened to them a couple years earlier. But
can I give the Chiefs their flowers though? I do want to say some nice things about them.
Let's do
therapy.
Okay, so I know how you're talking about all those injuries, but we didn't even bring up Mahomes on his bum ankle, and I thought he played amazing, even with basically a broken ankle. That's a gutsy performance, and I just wanted to put that out there because you didn't even mention it, and you're a diehard Mahomes fan, and I'm not.
I didn't get to it yet.
Oh, you didn't get it to yet. Oh, okay.
Yeah, Mahomes did play pretty fantastic. There was, I mean, obviously, like the fumble was like a huge snafu, which they could have probably won going away without that. But one point I was going to make. There was at least 4 or 5 times in that game where you say, if Mahomes has a good ankle, he gets away from that rush or he makes that play or he makes that throw or something. So the ankle definitely was a factor, but he gritted it out and made it anyways. And when the game was on the line, last play of the game was essentially the first time he tried to run all game because he had to. And that's if he doesn't go out of the pocket and try to run on his bum ankle, the late hit never happens out of bounds. Like if he just takes a sack there or throws it away, then we're going to overtime. So that was an incredibly gritty play by Mahomes at the end there. It wasn't by any stretch a perfect game or like the best game I've ever seen him play, but given the circumstances and given the opponent, I mean, it's going to go down as one of the more important games of his legacy, especially if he can pay it off with a Super Bowl win.
Yeah, I mean, P, you're right that neither of us brought up Mahomes, and that performance was ridiculous. Like I think I said it was going to be his flu game, and like he played on a bum ankle. To Sasha's point, it wasn't his perfect game, but he substantially outplayed Joe Burrow. Like I'm not sure I've heard enough people talking today about Joe Burrow playing not that good of a game. He had like two I don't want to say pretty poor picks, but he had 2 picks. He got sacked 5 times. He probably held out on the ball too long a bunch of times. But Mahomes definitely outplayed him. I think he was 325 yards, 2 TDs. He had that really bad fumble, which, was kind of a fluke play and probably really could have cost them. But I agree with Sasha. Especially in these high leverage playoff games, 3rd and 4, 5, 6, like his ability to use his legs to get that first down is a thing, and he uses it often. And he very clearly, like how many 3rd and 6, 7, 8 was there in that game where he didn't use his feet? And then finally at the end, he's like, screw it. Like, I got to get this first down. And he did. And that was the ball game. So I don't know. The sad thing about Mahomes is we are like numb to his greatness at this point at the age of 27. Because he has it all. And he also just somehow has like a ridiculous pain tolerance and just like, yeah, like I almost don't want to say this because it's so corny, but like his competitive will to win is like, I don't know, second to none.
326 yards for Mahomes with MVS as his number 1 receiver. Granted, Kelce was there, but it is impressive. It was the most quiet 326 yards I've seen in a long time. He just dinking and diming every time. MVS coming up with these big plays at the end, and Joe Burrow just I do want to put the blame on him, but 5 sacks is pretty rough. He got hit 12 times in the game. I know he needs to have a little more presence, but that's tough when you got Chris Jones coming at you every play, being a game wrecker that he was.
Yeah, fair, but he threw for 275, 5 sacks, 2 picks, and he's throwing to T. Higgins and Jamar Chase.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, and I feel like, I don't know what it was. Like, you're watching the game on TV, you're not watching the all 22, you don't like see what's going on downfield. But every time he just gave T. Higgins or Jamar Chase a chance, they came down with it every time. And so, like, why was that not more part of the Bengals game plan? Is just like, hey, our receivers are way better than anyone they have covering them. You don't need much time to just throw it up to these guys. Like if they're not open, they're still open. And I felt like they way underutilized, but like Higgins had the touchdown catch where he just mossed the guy. And then Chase had the like 40-yarder later in the game on another 3rd and long that they threw it down the field, and they ended up, I believe, scoring a touchdown on that drive as well. It just seems like they didn't give them enough opportunities to just make plays.
Yeah. I think that's probably fair. I mean, he tried it one time late and threw the pick with
that's true.
In general, and this is like, I don't know, maybe that I know we're going a little long here, but it's like huge game and by far the best game of yesterday. But what I was going to say next is related to, like, I think that probably the bigger point with the Chiefs is Their secondary, I thought, played really well yesterday. The whole defense played really well, but they're like that draft class, man, and the last couple draft classes for the Chiefs, it's actually pretty incredible. Like you had Brian Cook, I'm going to get all their names wrong.
Jalen Watson, Joshua
Williams. Yeah, like you got a bunch of rookies out there, 4th round picks, 7th round picks, 1 first-round pick. Karlaftis got a sack. Like and then last year, like Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Nick Bolton. Like I came away from that being like, holy shit, the Chiefs' young talent is like they got a lot of players for a lot of years on, that they're going to be there
rookie
for a while.
deals. And
exactly.
I mean, they drafted 10 guys this year. All 10 have contributed throughout the season. And they're all going to be second-year players next year. They should even be just that much better. And we don't need to like delve into the Chiefs' future that much yet. We still have the Super Bowl ahead of them. But they really put themselves in a position where in this year's draft, they can maybe try to package some picks and like just get a couple of really high-end talent players, because they're not going to need 10 rookies again next year because all those guys are going to be back.
Yeah.
But,
and I'm sure, like, based on what we watched yesterday, like, if they were going to go for a high-end guy, you're looking at a receiver, probably.
Receiver and right tackle is really like the only 2 things that they need.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced Sky Moore doesn't have a substantially better season next year. I really was impressed with, well, what he did as a punt returner. I was terrified that he was going to muff a punt.
Yeah. No, that was the one last thing I wanted to talk about on this game was I think the Chiefs did something really smart that probably almost nobody noticed. But there was a point in that game when the Bengals were kicking off and Sky Moore was back there to return the kickoff. And I was like, Isaiah Pacheco's like the one skill guy we have that's not hurt right now. And he always returns kickoffs. Like, what is Sky Moore doing back there? He's gonna fumble. He's gonna ruin the game. But I think what happened is Kadarius Toney was hurt, McCole Hardman was hurt, and Justin Watson wasn't suited up. He was inactive. They knew that Sky Moore was going to have to return a punt eventually in that game, so they put him back there for a kickoff just to get his feet wet, like catch a ball out of the air, like get comfortable back there, because a kickoff's a lot less pressure than a punt. You don't have guys bearing down on you as much. And then it was only later that I saw him back there for the punt that I was like, holy shit, we're letting this guy return punts. And then I realized all of our other punt returners
who else is going to do it?
So I think that was a smart move on their part. It doesn't mean he couldn't have muffed one still, but whatever they said to him, it worked because he looked very comfortable catching those punts, which he hasn't all season long.
I mean, I read an article today, which I think is like such a, like as a leader or manager or like a father, it's such a statement on the Chiefs culture that, so like basically what Sky Moore was saying is like, I muffed 3 kicks this year. I thought they never were gonna let me do it again. And all of our coaches kept telling me is like, you're gonna get another chance and you're gonna be great. Like he was basically saying like, this is not a culture where you screw up and they throw you in the trash. It's like they just like people just keep believing in you and pushing you to be better, which I think is like such a subtle but like huge cultural thing, which I thought was really cool. It's like it's so Andy Reid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think I have one more thing that we probably need to talk about the Eagles-Niners, I would say. I think the Bills, the Bengals, the Chiefs, it's going to be a fun 5 to 6 years to watch them go at it every single year. And then Trevor Lawrence, too. I mean, they looked good this year. I mean, Justin Herbert, I know you hate the Chargers. But I think the NFL is in really good hands right now, and it's a good product minus the refs. I'm excited to watch the next 5 or 6 years for sure.
Yeah, I agree. The AFC's got a lot of good storylines. Let's do this. We're gonna take a quick break. We'll take the Eagles-Niners game on the other side of the break, and then we'll catch best bets in the last segment. You're listening to the BroStorm Sports Podcast. Stay with us. Having an event that needs amazing entertainment? Hi-Fi Productions is the way to go. They bring their mobile dueling pianos and provide a highly interactive and fun show that's perfect for fundraisers, corporate events, or any kind of party. Is somebody getting married soon? Hi-Fi also provides the best wedding DJ service around, winning Wedding Wire's Couples Choice Award 4 years in a row. They know how to pack a dance floor. Based in Wichita, Kansas, visit hifiproductions.net to book your unforgettable event. Welcome back into BroStorm Sports. We had a rousing break. J-Miz reminded us how shitty he is at picking games, which is always a fun time. But the Chiefs-Bengals game was not the only game played over the weekend. The Eagles got a 31-7 victory over the San Francisco 49ers to also advance to the Super Bowl, creating the ultimate Kelce brothers matchup and Andy Reid Bowl in the Super Bowl. So it came out today, actually, that Brock Purdy has a torn UCL. He'll be getting Tommy John surgery, and that game was pretty much over once that happened.
You talking about the Kelce brothers Super Bowl, I'm pissed that I meant to lead off the show with the very important question for us and our listeners of whose podcast over the next couple weeks do you think is going to get more listens? The Kelce brothers, the Kelce brothers podcast, or our brothers podcast?
I would say that all depends on how hard our listeners pump this podcast out to everyone they know and tell them it's the best place for Chiefs content on the planet. So,
we've
listeners, it's on you.
I hope you approve of this, Sasha. I put the intern on trying to get us a spot on the Kelce brothers podcast this week. I figured they'd want another pair of brothers who were doing the same thing they were doing. So we'll see. I think they go off on Wednesday, so maybe we'll be on there.
It is funny that you bring that up because we actually do exactly the same thing as Travis and Jason Kelce for 1 hour out of our week every single week. Like, we're doing what they're doing.
Well, also
but the rest of the hours they're playing center and tight end in the NFL.
Yeah, well, I'm going to work, putting two shoes on every morning, sitting on Zoom calls, debating. I don't know.
Why do you even put shoes on for that?
I would like to state for the record that I think we had the idea for a podcast first, and maybe even started it first. So,
yeah.
I
don't know when
your
your idea came
I
up.
could check that. Hey, I'm going to be an intern here. I got you guys.
Alrighty. While you're doing that, did the I mean, I know like it's impossible to know, like to kind of get anyone, but did the Niners make a mistake by only having Josh Johnson as their only option after Purdy, or was there nothing they could do about it? And was Garoppolo close to healthy enough to have him as an active player for that game? That's like short of that, I don't know what the 49ers could have done about that whole situation.
Yeah, it's a good question. I guess what I would ask, and we probably should know the answer, is have they only been carrying two quarterbacks on their roster since Garoppolo went down?
Yeah, that's yes.
Because typically they would have, like, the Chiefs carry Shane Buechele or whatever, Buechele, whatever his name is, on the practice squad. Like, typically, how are you gonna have a practice squad without a quarterback?
Well, the actual funny thing about it is Josh Johnson wasn't signed until Garoppolo went down. So they literally didn't even have a backup until they signed Josh Johnson. So I'm pretty sure Purdy was the only other guy on the roster when Garoppolo went down, and then they signed Josh Johnson.
Yeah. One thought sorry, go ahead.
Seems like they're running a little thin there on quarterbacks. When you consider the history there with the 49ers.
Yeah. One thought I had, which is probably like the biggest no shit comment of the day, at least, is like, if you go back to the Garoppolo injury, it basically looked the exact same as Mahomes' injury. Mahomes finished the game and then threw for 325 yards and 2 TDs and won the AFC Championship game the next week. And Garoppolo's been out for like 10 games.
Yeah, but didn't he break his ankle?
He I think he did, which is why it's not really a fair comment. Broader point, because that game, even though it was 7-7 late in the second quarter, was essentially over at the 7:02 mark of the first quarter. When Brock Purdy sounds like tore his UCL joint in his elbow. Even so, Shanahan has a pretty checkered history of having some flops and some pretty big games. Lost last year in the NFC Championship game, had some poor moments against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, was the offensive coordinator when the Falcons blew the biggest lead in Super Bowl history. He just seems to pucker up a little bit in these big games, including not challenging that Devontae Smith catch on the 4th and 3 at the start of that game when it still seemed like it was going to be a game. So there's that element of the 49ers losing. They're also just, for whatever it's worth, the 49ers play a super rugged style of football. Everyone hates playing them. It also seems to me that by the end of the season, half of their roster is usually injured, including their quarterbacks every year. So something about the way that they play, and particularly the quarterback position, seems to leave them like pretty banged up by the end of the year, for whatever it's worth.
Yeah, it is an interesting question. Like they had 3 quarterbacks coming into this year. Trey Lance broke his ankle. Jimmy Garoppolo did something, whatever it was, it kept him out 10 weeks. And now Brock Purdy has a torn UCL. So it's either just really bad luck.
And Josh Johnson had the concussion.
Yeah. And it was always like, at some point it has to be a little bit of luck, but it was always just like Jimmy Garoppolo has a glass jaw, and that's their problem, is that he can't stay healthy and he can't stay in. But it's not just Jimmy Garoppolo. It's like their whole team's injured every year. So I don't know if it's the way they're preparing or, what all factors into that. But at some point it has to be a little bit more than just bad luck.
Yeah. I mean, the same, for whatever it's worth, it seems that the same thing happens to the Ravens every year, who play like a very similar style of just like rugged, run the football and beat people up. So there's got to be something to the way that these teams are managing their players, which makes them more prone to injury.
Yeah, it's interesting to take it from the Eagles' perspective. Like, yeah, the Niners quarterbacks got hurt, but the Eagles also just like pretty much ran at will on the Niners defense, and they looked pretty good in the game. Although Jalen Hurts wasn't forced into like becoming a passer in that game. The Niners never really put any pressure on the Eagles. They played with a big lead for the whole second half. So we didn't necessarily see a whole lot from the Eagles, but they did basically what they've done all year, which is get out to a lead, be a front runner, and run the ball all over people. And I don't think the Eagles will be able to use quite that recipe in the Super Bowl. But it's a good recipe for winning if you can manage it.
Yeah, they ran the ball 44 times for 148 yards. Jalen Hurts threw 25 passes. He didn't need to throw 25 passes either. He probably could have thrown 10 and they would have been all right. I think Fred Warner went out too for them. I mean, that's technically the best defense in the NFL, right? I mean, they really did run the ball at will. I'm a little nervous for the Chiefs though. I don't know how they're going to stop him. I mean, I know they got Chris Jones and Frank Clark, but it's going to be a good game.
Yeah, I think we're going to get into a little bit of preview for next week, but I've watched the Chiefs enough this year, and it proved out to be true this week again. Like their run defense is not the Chiefs' run defense of old. Not saying the Eagles can't run on them. I bet they will. I don't really know what to make of this game for the Eagles. Like they didn't have to do much. To your point, like get up on someone and just run the football. The 49ers had a quarterback that couldn't throw after 7 minutes left in the first quarter. And I don't know. Jalen Hurts, while that game was close in the first half, looked like somewhat discombobulated throwing the ball and didn't look like he could do anything. So something tells me if you don't let the Eagles get up 21-7 on you and you put Hurts in positions where he has to throw and the game's tight, I'm still yet to be super convinced on what's going to happen there. So I think the Eagles look good. They look like world beaters, but no one has put them. Like, it's been a super easy run for them this playoff. So,
yeah,
I think it's a different animal in the Super Bowl.
I agree with that. The only thing you can say that's good about the Eagles getting 2 blowout wins is they're going to come in to the Super Bowl healthy. Whereas you might not be able to say the same for the Chiefs. It's going to be it's going to be interesting to see what comes of all these injuries that happened during that game last night.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can say the same for the Chiefs. I mean, their best, aside from running the football, their best defensive quality is putting pressure on the quarterback. The Chiefs happen to have the best quarterback in the league under pressure, and one of the best offensive lines in the league. So I think that's going to look different. But yeah, I mean, Eagles look good. I think we got the right Super Bowl matchup.
Yeah, we got the 2 best records in the league. Both teams 14-3 in the regular season. Both 1 seeds. Obviously, the AFC was kind of screwy this year because of the 1-no contest. So you could argue that, the Bills could have ended up with a better record, but they didn't. So 2 1 seeds. It should be a good matchup. You guys got anything else to say about the Eagles-Niners game?
Nope, just unfortunate turn of events for Brock Purdy. Everyone was kind of rooting for him. I think I think he really would have struggled against the Chiefs. So, I mean, it's probably bad that they won. They lost. I mean,
it's rough for Purdy because Tommy John surgery is like a year-long injury, even though I've seen people say in 6 months. And so, probably back to being Trey Lance's job come start of next year.
It was a P. That's it. You bring up a great point, which I don't say to you that often.
Let's go.
But I was thinking the same thing. Guy was on top of the world, and then in an instant, it's like, oh shit! I all of a sudden don't even know if this is my job next year. Especially coming up.
Yeah, Reggie Bush said that it was I think he said a boo boo, he was being soft, and I was like, dude, he tore his UCL. Obviously, he didn't know that, but everyone was bashing Brock Purdy. If it was me, I'd be out there. I'm like, I promise you, if he could have been out there, he was ready to go.
Yeah, the fact that it came out today that he had a torn UCL really puts a lot of context around the fact that he legitimately couldn't throw the ball, and there's a reason he came out of the game, and then obviously couldn't do anything once he had to go back into the game because of Josh Johnson's concussion. So let's wrap with that. It was a pretty uneventful game, not that fun to watch, not that much to analyze, but we've got our Super Bowl set. On the other side, we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to reconcile everything, fantasy, bets, our brackets, all of that good stuff, and then give you a little Super Bowl primer. Stay with us. Welcome back into BroStorm Sports. We're going to reconcile some stuff now. We made some picks last week. We picked brackets before the playoffs, and we did a little fantasy draft. So, Pete, give us some updates.
I do. Hey, Sasha, before P gives you the updates, can we reconcile one thing with him?
Yeah.
Are you still making out with your Joe Burrow magazine now that they've lost?
Yeah, I still am. I still have faith in him. He's Joe Shiesty. He's Joe Burr. He'll be back better than ever next year with a healthy offensive lineman. So yes, Scott, I am still making out with my poster. No, my magazine.
Did you text with him today?
No, he ghosted me. We were texting on the daily, and then for some reason he just stopped. So
yeah, okay.
Well, been ghosted before.
You should maybe apologize for your DraftKings negative balance.
Well, yeah, that's fair. I'm not. That's all right. I know. I don't like this game. I don't like this game.
On to the betting.
This is a touchy subject.
Quick aside. P doesn't have a DraftKings account.
Yeah, I don't.
DraftKings won't let him in.
Yeah, he won't let me in. I'm not a real person. I'm on FanDuel. FanDuel, if you want to sponsor us, we'll do it right now. All right, so this fantasy draft, I know you guys remember this because you guys are all true listeners. And so in last place was J-Miz. I think we all called that one. He had Brock Purdy with the whopping 0.9 points.
J-Miz is
Juju.
not on air, but has he never not finished last in anything that we've done?
I just like that he can't defend himself right now. So and he can actually hear us, so it's even funnier. We're not gonna let him defend himself. I will say though, McCaffrey with the number 1 overall pick was great, 20.6. But Juju, so he had a whopping 36.5 points. And second to last was unfortunately me with 46. I had Mahomes, Jamar Chase, George Kittle, whatever. Brock Purdy killed us. So this is what really matters here. Scott versus Sasha. One of them had 58 and one of them had 61. And Sasha did come out with the win, so he's now $30 richer. Miles Sanders and Travis Kelce really carried him, combining for 38.1. That's good math on my part. And then Scott had Hurts and Higgins, so that's what really carried him. It was a great call on Sasha. He has a lot of practice, though, so I'm going to actually not give him this win.
You're not going to give me this win because I've played fantasy football before, or
no? Because you just draft a lot. That's all I'm saying.
I just draft stuff all you
Yeah. You're a big drafter. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a compliment, and that you're
I
making money.
appreciate it. But you gave me kind of a compliment because you said you were not going to give me the win.
Yeah,
you have the win at heart. You have the win. I'm not giving it to you. You're still 0-0 in my books until we get more experience. So, congrats to Sasha.
Two quick comments. One, Sasha got lucky because if Kadarius Toney played at all or just caught that touchdown pass, he would have lost. Two, Sasha, do you think you'll ever get your $10 from Intern P?
Intern P is like toggling through his brain right now to see if I'm going to admit to everyone that he already Venmo'd me. If I can't in good conscience tell everybody that he's not going to pay me when I got the Venmo during this show.
Wait a minute. You know how to use Venmo, Intern P?
I have a subscription to it. Actually, I have Venmo. I have Venmo Premium. I do know how to use Venmo. But yeah, I was gonna let Sasha let them know that I wasn't gonna pay you just for the content. So I really respect that from him today. Yeah. I wasn't ready for that.
Okay.
Aussie Open weekly, Joe Burrow monthly, Venmo yearly. Those are P's subscriptions of the week.
Oh, and Wikipedia lifetime as well.
Yeah.
And well, how often is the Pornhub one?
Actually,
you don't have to pay for that, P.
I don't like the ads, dude.
Well, at least he's honest.
Yeah, that's fair. But it was a good week.
Sorry if your kids are listening.
Week. Oh, my kids?
Anyone's kids. Anyone's kids.
Cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I doubt they are. Okay, so we doing the picks now? Do I need to go over those?
Go over the picks.
It's a Pearson podcast today. I hope you guys love it.
Yeah, just speed it along, Intern P.
Oh, okay. I didn't know I was getting the lead today. I didn't know. Okay, so Sasha had the Chiefs. So did Scott, of course. Homers, whatever. The Bengals, so whatever. I had the over in that one. So you guys had the over, right, too, or the under?
No, I had the under.
Had the over.
Okay, so Sasha went 3-1 because he also had the Eagles, but he did take the over in that one. So that makes him 3-1 for this week. I went 2-2 with the Eagles and the over. No, I went with the Eagles and the under, so that's why I'm 2-2.
Sorry, by my math, Sasha's 2-2. You had the over in both games?
No, I had the Chiefs in the under.
Oh.
You sure
about that?
Dude, I'm going off the dome right now. I'm even write this down.
Let's do this. P had the Bengals in the over. That's 0-2. The Eagles in the under. That's 2-2 for a 2-2 record. I had the Chiefs in the under, which is 2-0, and the Eagles in the over, which is 1-1 for a 3-1 record. And Scott had the Chiefs in the over, which is 1-1, and the 49ers in the under, which is 1-1 for a 2-2 record.
Okay, so it took all of 3 minutes for P to be demoted back to his role.
Okay, he had it written down. No,
Also,
he had it written down.
Sasha,
no, I didn't know I was doing this.
Can I tell you a side note? Before you joined tonight, intern P was telling me and Jay Miz that he doesn't need to take notes because he remembers it. He never took notes in school because he remembers everything, and then he just didn't remember any of anyone's picks, which of course he didn't take notes on.
I can't defend myself there.
P, a photographic memory doesn't do you any good if you have no notes to take a photograph of.
Okay, well, yeah, I just didn't even write it down. I got bigger things going on in this brain right now. You got me with the subscriptions. You just put me. I was just discombobulated, dude. It's not fair.
All right, let's talk about the Super Bowl.
Real quick, can we just talk about my bracket championship?
No,
I was moving on.
Nope. Congrats.
Sasha won the bracket. Barely.
I won it. All right. Yeah, let's talk about the Super Bowl. There's a few storylines coming into this Super Bowl. You've got is Mahomes the greatest player in the history of players, or AKA the Mahomes legacy? Chiefs potential dynasty. It'd be 2 Super Bowls in 4 years, 3 appearances in 4 years. You got the Kelce brothers. You got the Andy Reid Bowl. Also, probably the 1 and 2 in the MVP race this year, squaring off as quarterbacks. First ever 2 black starting quarterbacks facing off against each other in the Super Bowl. So there's a lot of storylines to go around. What sticks out to you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm afraid of being a homer here, but to me, the most like compelling and relevant for like long-term NFL is the Mahomes legacy question. Really, it's like Mahomes and Andy Reid legacy question because if you get 1 in 4 years, it's 1 Super Bowl. If you start to get 2 in 4 years when you played in 3, I think that you're now talking like Chiefs dynasty and Mahomes legacy. So I think that's the biggest one. But I also just think, to your point, like a lot of really great storylines, and I think we're in for a good couple weeks and a really good game. I think you've got a little bit of like old school NFL turn new school in the Eagles, which is that like this year. I mean, one of the very first BroStorm episodes of this year, we talked about like the running revolution is back, and the Eagles typify that, right? You got a team with a running quarterback who passes for like 120, 150 yards a game, and they still win because they just beat the shit out of people and run the ball. Versus the Chiefs, who are like more of your finesse, we throw it all over, kind of like the team who has defined the NFL for the last 5 to 7 years of like the passing revolution. So I like you've also got this kind of difference of styles, which I think is going to be really compelling. So it's not surprisingly for someone who's a Chiefs fan, I think it's going to be a really great game.
P, what storyline do you like?
I do have a storyline, and it's not really football related. Do you think Jackson Mahomes and Brittany are going to show up these next couple of weeks and really steal the shine from Mahomes? Because I hope they do. I want to see all the Jackson Mahomes TikToks. I want to see Brittany just absolutely going crazy on the sideline. That's what I want to see this Super Bowl.
You know what? I'm not sure on Jackson and Brittany, but speaking of the Mahomes family, did any of you see the Pat Mahomes, as in Pat Sr., interview after the game?
I did. I don't know if that's just his thing or he had to be hammered. I mean,
I think he was blitzed, man.
I didn't hear the interview. I saw him smoking the cigar. What did he say in the interview?
I'm about whatever Pat smoking one of these Joe Burrows. He kept calling his cigar a Joe Burrow, and he was pretty much. It was basically like Joe Namath, Susie Colbert.
I want to kiss you right now.
Yeah.
he was happy.
It's like a smitten intern P talking to Joe Burrow.
No, but The storyline is that I really like is obviously Andy Reid, Mahomes, but is this could be Kelce's last couple of years being a top tier tight end. I mean, he's 33, about to turn 34. I mean, how many more years does this guy have of being the elite tight end that he is?
Yeah, it's a good point. And that's the thing, like, looking forward is the Chiefs are eventually going to have to replace Travis Kelce or, like, do something on offense. Like, he's basically saved them this year by being Travis Kelce and them having no good receivers.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what they'd be like without him. So, yeah, a lot of good storylines. I like the Kelce Bros storyline the most, I guess. Although, to Scott's point, I think, like, when we look back on this Super Bowl, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, whatever the time frame is, it's going to be more about Mahomes' legacy. Like, we're either going to be saying that was the Super Bowl that catapulted him into another stratosphere, or you could be saying that's another one that got away and, like, decreased his legacy.
Right. I do think it's interesting, and I don't know if we're going to talk about it. I know we're not going to make picks, but the early line is Eagles are favorites, right? Started to pick him, moved to the Eagles. I do think it's interesting that it's the second straight game where people seem to, I don't know. I listened to something today where people are like, Eagles 1-53 are way better than the Chiefs, and there's not a single position group other than quarterback where the Eagles are better than the Chiefs. And I feel like the Chiefs roster is getting a lot of disrespect, as in, like, it's Patrick Mahomes and everyone else, when, like, they have a really solid offensive line. They've got one of the 3 best defensive players in football. Their linebackers are really good. I feel like I am, as a Chiefs fan, I'm liking the narrative of, like, the Chiefs are underdogs again and people are going to pick the Eagles. And I feel like Mahomes has basically been on an FU revenge tour this whole year, I feel like, and let's just keep it going towards the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think that's a common theme, is that the Chiefs roster in general, from the beginning of the season, is disrespected and underrated, in my opinion, because you don't just win 14 games by only having a good quarterback. They have other good players on their team. And I think it all started when they traded Tyreek Hill. It's like, because they traded one good player, it means they don't have any good players. No, it just means they don't have that one player. And he's a big, like, the Tyreek Hill trade is a big reason why they have 10 rookies that are all contributing. And they'll have even more next year with some of those picks they got from him. If the Chiefs win the Super Bowl this year, essentially because of the Tyreek Hill trade, people were looking at it as a rebuilding year. It's bad news for everyone, P.
Yeah, for sure.
I
It's
agree.
a scary proposition.
There were a lot of people saying they weren't even going to make the playoffs this year. I will admit that I was one of those guys that said that. So I'll say that I was down on the Chiefs this year, and it is nice to see them actually be good. I do like to see you guys happy. Okay, I'll give you that one. Yeah. Hopefully they play well. That's all I'm saying. And Rihanna's the halftime performer, and she's beautiful and makes great music. So I will be in tune to that one as well.
Side note: my early favorite quote from a player is Marquez Valdez Scantling, which is still, we have a long running debate as to how you pronounce his name on this show. MVS tweeted, serious question: can I watch the Rihanna at halftime? Which I appreciated.
MVS, well, first of all, Marquez said in a tweet earlier in the year that there's no K in his name, and he can't understand why people pronounce it Marquez, because there's no K in his name. It's Marquez.
That doesn't make, because the QU makes the K sound.
Someone can hook him up with Rihanna so that he doesn't have to go out for the halftime show. He can stay in the locker room and get focused, because apparently he's our only playable wide receiver right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to wrap this up, guys. Just so everyone knows, we're going to come out with an episode just a couple of days before the Super Bowl, do some fun stuff, take props, make it a whole Super Bowl preview episode. That'll be coming out the Friday before the Super Bowl. So be watching your feed for that to get your Super Bowl primer in, get you ready for the big game. If you've listened this far, you like something you heard, subscribe, rate, give us 5 stars. And Scott looks like he has something to say.
Kelce brothers, we're coming for you.
Kelce brothers, we're coming for you. This has been the BroStorm Sports podcast. Follow us on TikTok, Instagram, all that good stuff. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.